Alrighty, I believe we are live. If there is anybody here yet, this is my first time going live, so hopefully there's no hiccups. But if anything kind of happens, bear with me. But yeah, so today I am going to be hosting Ben on the channel here. He had me on for the discussion of our first book in the series, and so we're going to do a live discussion of Mad Ship. So Ben, do you want to just introduce yourself, your channel, real quick?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Khan. I'm Ben from Books with Genghis Khan. Pretty new booktuber. Just started up a little less than a year ago, and am loving having some more of these live chats now. It's really why I was interested in starting the channel in the first place, was to just start doing some more buddy reads instead of just reading in my just all alone here as one of the only people I know who reads fantasy and sci-fi. So this is great.
Yeah, I definitely agree because this is the stuff that I've learned the most about new books and people in these live discussion formats. So it's been great to do this series. Well, I guess the second book in the series because we didn't do Forest here together, but it's been really fun to read this alongside you and have somebody to message throughout all the
Yeah,
craziness
yeah.
that's going on in this series.
Yeah, it's fun.
So
I've
did
I've
did you
actually
like
done
this one
very
more?
oh yeah, yeah. And I've done so few actual buddy reads in my life at all, even without going on live chats. Just it's fun to be able to, when you're reading kind of towards the same place as someone, and you could just message when something fun or crazy happens, and that's been great. I want to definitely do some more of that. But yeah, this book, Madship, incredible. Uh, just I was it often does take me a while to get really invested and engaged in at the start of series. So it's very common for me to be kind of just like in that slow burn, regardless of the pacing of the first books, but just to get acclimated to the writer's style, the setting, the characters, the plotting, and any new jargon. But I was definitely hooked by the end of Ship of Magic, and the plots had really been set in motion. But we just get to hit the ground running here, and that's what I love
Yeah.
about book twos, when the table's been set, and just epic craziness can now ensue, and you care about the characters already from page one, and it had been a couple weeks since I'd read Ship of Magic, and just sinking back in was so easy. Being back with these characters, I had missed them. I found, and so yeah, big. It was a step up for me in terms of my experience from book one, just because I was hooked and engaged and invested from page one, and just I found myself just even more immersed and hooked to this than book one, and there's so many really cool, epic moments that happened here. So yeah, definitely a step up for me from an already really great book one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, overall, um, it was like you said, I think part of it is that we know the characters going into book two. So, I already kind of had some theories of where I thought characters' storylines were going to go, and it was exciting. I've said like in a couple of the discords and just my like review quote thoughts of the book. There literally wasn't a single perspective in this book that I didn't enjoy reading,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, yeah.
crazy. Like every single book that I've read that has this many perspectives, I'm always kind of bummed to leave one. And for this, that would happen for like a second, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, but I also want to know what's going on over here again.
Yes,
So like,
yes.
it never lasted very long. So
Yes, no, totally. All the different storylines and the different locations were so dramatic and high stakes and tense and interesting and unpredictable in their own ways. And so going back to a new point of view is almost like, yes, we're back here again. I wasn't like missing you because I was so compelled by the last POV I was in, but now I'm happy to be back in. Yeah, every single one, including even just like I was almost looking forward to the section breaks with the seasons changing, because
yeah,
I knew we would get an interlude with the serpents, which Hob has been doing for both books so far. These short kind of interludes from serpent POVs, and those are fantastic. Like I'm whether it's the human characters, non-human characters, I've been lapping it all up. And so yeah, you're right. This is I've had, I think, multi POV books where hello, where I've been enjoy all the POVs, but maybe not to this extent where I'm so happy to get into the next POV and see to continue that storyline. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Did you have a? I mean, I guess we can kind of, if you guys have read this, I'm assuming anyone that's in this stream has already read this book, or else they probably wouldn't be here. It's the second book in the series. So, I mean, are you cool with? Do you want to start getting into some spoiler talk?
yeah. Let's do it.
Um,
Let's do. I'd be worried about talking any more about the book and not spoiling stuff. So yeah,
yeah.
let's do
I
it.
mean,
Let's do it.
I wasn't quite sure where to start. I mean, there's a ton of different places that we could hop in here. There's a couple characters I specifically wanted to get your thoughts on, because one of the interesting things is that, Ben and I have been messaging each other back and forth, and this definitely happened in Ship of Magic, but I wonder if it's the same with Matchup. We were both kind of drawn to different sets of characters. It was like Ben said that his favorite perspectives were like, who'd you say, like Althea and Paragon, Amber.
Althea, Wintro, and Kenneth, their whole combined thing. Probably for this book, my number one. And then Althea and Brashen for sure. I love those two, and their whole kind of dynamic and progression. Paragon, those would probably be my top though. I enjoyed all of them, like we said, but the Bingtown situation so like it's so wrapped up in family drama and society kind of drama that I was probably less compelled by that whole side of the plot, but in the end it had a great payoff though.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess one of my favorite parts, like I guess earlier on, I don't remember exactly where it happens in this book, is when Althea and Brashen and Amber finally, I mean, I loved them restoring and getting Paragon off I loved following that whole thing. Like, that was so cool to see Brashen kind of just take control and get this, I don't know, this motley crew of people to work together to get Paragon back on water. Like, I loved following that so much.
Yes. And I don't think this was the most unpredictable storyline in the series. Like, I feel like we're trained as fantasy readers to expect kind of convergence plots in multi POV stories, and so just this side plot of Paragon, being stranded on the beach, and then Vivacia getting captured, and Brashen, Amber, Althea all being friendly with Paragon. I feel like I was kind of expecting them to try to take over Paragon. I didn't know how it would happen exactly. Would they try to just steal Paragon? It turns out they needed the whole help of the town to get Paragon floating again, so that was not a possibility. Yeah. But the way it happened, where they used Davad and to actually help them, and then to buy it from the family, and they had to get all sorts of sordid townsfolk who were kind of on the outskirts of society to help them work the ship, and the way they ended up, and how Paragon himself was kind of dismayed at being sold off by his family, and then was not acting so cooperatively a lot of the time. It was also interesting how it unfolded, and then it was really touching how the freed slave boy, Clef, was his name? Clef,
I think, yeah, Clef.
How it's just a few words from Clef about how it's look, you can be miserable about all these horrible things that have happened to you, but you can just choose now to not be, and to enjoy life. And those words spoke to Paragon, and the wisdom of children is sometimes so pure and cuts to the heart of things. But and then how Paragon then started cooperating more, and then when they got Paragon floating, and those are just some of my favorite lines in the book, just how Paragon overheard Althea talking about how she would outsail Paragon and Brashen if she were captaining the Vivacia, and Paragon's oh, don't count on it. And then when Paragon finally gets in the water, he's so happy. and he's like on flying. Like that was touching stuff. Like that was, even if it was kind of predictable to see like, oh, this was probably going to happen somewhere in the series. Like it was so satisfying to see it all play out and in such interesting psychological ways for everyone. But so satisfying. And we had a really positive cathartic moment there with the floating and sailing of Paragon.
Yeah, like Hobb, like in that specific, I mean, because it was a while, I wouldn't call that just a scene, but she did such an amazing job of making it feel so real what the situation would be like if you were to get this group of people that everybody was doubting could make this happen. And they were even doubting themselves if they could ever get this to actually work because of logistics and just physically being able to do it. And then the whole other curveball of Paragon just being a total wild card. Maybe they get everything physically that they need to get done. And then he just is like, nah, I'm not going to do this. Like, so they were dealing with all that. And then like to see the culmination of all of this and then them kind of become a crew. I mean, we slowly but surely see Althea and Brashen's relationship. I mean, there's always tension, like, you know, between them. And Hobb does a great job of creating that tension just because of the nature of their relationship. But it's really cool to see Althea grow more and more respect for Brashen as a captain, and Brashen to grow more and more respect for Althea and giving her space to earn her stripes and do her own thing, you know. And that whole, like, I love that whole part of this book to see this all, you know, crew basically come together.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Things got a little hairy at one point when a former rapist is like alone with Althea and trying to sexually assault her, but that ended up, you know, she was able to get out of that, and that's when some craziness then ensued. Where she was going to throw him overboard, but then the serpent came, and like her, then that haughty sailor, Half, was it, like he disobeyed Brashen and her orders, and then he got hurt by the serpent, and so it was interesting, like, to show these very kind of masculine psychological dynamics on this like ship's crew, and how Brashen and Althea were trying to navigate that, and to bring it to a place where like everyone could respect everyone, and be content in their like role on the ship. But all of that, was done so well. And I like reading relationships like Althea and Brashen's, where both people seem to really kind of have a big crush on each other, maybe even love each other. There's some romantic entanglement, but there's like they also have reasons to be frustrated with the other, and then they have to work together. It's just such this interesting dynamic that I don't read too often in fantasy, because people often like get together very quickly and then like stay together, or so it's just an interesting kind of romantic dynamic that I just don't get to read too often. I found utterly intriguing. And like then there's the jealousy that came in with Greg to Nyra, but then being in Althea's POV when she's with Greg and be like, oh, on paper he's like the perfect person for her, but she just wasn't feeling that spark, that romantic spark towards him. And then but then Brashen doesn't know that, and he's not in her mind, and he hears rumors that like they're courting each other, and so he's just resentful and feeling and hoping and angry about it. I just loved all of that so much, and then it's also tied up in this, maybe this overall theme of the book. One of them, I think, is this feeling of like trying to know yourself and seize your own kind of destiny, and that came in with Althea and Greg about how she was trying to envision herself just as Greg's wife and not sailing her own ship, and she just couldn't do that, and so that was just an interesting factor, I thought, as well. But yeah, that whole plot line, those characters, I couldn't have been more into.
Yeah, and so I guess getting to that point, There was a couple of, I mean, Althea, obviously, Brashen were kind of instrumental in like getting this whole thing off the ground. But I guess this is kind of in a way gonna bring me back to, if you want to talk about this now, as Malta, because I mean, she as a character impressed me the most overall in this book. I mean, there are characters that I enjoy more, but I mean, I was so dead set
Mm.
on hating Malta. Like, not, I mean, like, I understand where she was coming from because she
Yeah, yeah.
was at that age where she was a preteen and thinking that she knows everything and thinking that her family is keeping her out because they think she's, I understood all that, but she was like that to the nth degree. And
Yeah.
I was so determined
Yeah,
and dead
yeah.
set that I just didn't. And
Yeah,
by the end of this
absolutely.
book, I was like, I like Malta.
Yeah, no, me too. Me too. I think I was even more dead set against her than you were in the first half, but
Yeah.
man, by the end, I was full on just in her corner rooting for her, and she experienced some of the most drastic character changes I've ever seen in any book. But she's at that age where it does make sense, but things don't always have to be the most realistic. Like there's a fantastical element to this where she's maybe on top of going through a traumatic period in like the town and her family's life, like she's been maybe exposed to lots of different memories from Paragon or the dragon in her dreams, and then exposed to all the memories later on in that insane scene when she's drowned in memories. But like, so there's a fantastical element to why her character, I think, becomes so much more mature than she was. But at the beginning, though, the Hob gives you like every little thought that these POV characters are having. Like this, the psychic distance is almost it doesn't even exist. You're right in the minds of the characters, and you're given every thought, like all their emotions. And so when we're in Malta's POV in like the first half of this book, there's so many just cruel, self-centered thoughts that she's having. Like she doesn't have a kind thought for anyone around her. Like she is just continually thinking about what is her gain in every situation, how she can manipulate things so that she looks good to her friends. And she just has such cruel thoughts for everyone in her family too. Like, so like, it's not just that she's a spoiled, like self-centered kid, but I think more than most self-centered kids, she's having a lot of cruel thoughts. And so Hob, I think, knows the arc she wants Malta to go on. So she just went full on like the opposite in the beginning, where having her mature and grow is going to create this as big a contrast as she possibly can. And it worked. Whatever I was doing with that, it worked like a charm, because to see someone go from just this spoiled, completely self-centered and cruel and malicious kind of person to someone who is more responsible, thinking about others, and it was very satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, like, so as it often happens in, the real world, it kind of took, I mean, she was been coddled, and especially, by Kyle, who just kind of is like, give her whatever she wants. She's my little girl type of thing. And, so Malta had this view of the world just being there for her. Like, what can happen? And then, she felt safe and secure, and everything like that she kind of knew came crashing down when the reality that her father had and the Vivacia had been captured sank into her. And that's like when, as soon as that happened, like we just see, the scene where they're talking about what to do with Paragon, with the Bestrit women are all kind of talking, and she's just like, let's just think logically. You guys have always told me to think with logic. Can we afford this? Because if we can't afford to do this, none of this conversation matters. And I'm like, okay, like, where did this come from?
No, but she you could tell from her internal thoughts that Hob has made her very attuned to everything around her. She's extremely observant, very clever, lots of wit and intelligence. And so, she's now just applying that to problems outside of herself rather than just thinking about, her own little mini world that was like a little fairy tale world that she was trying to create for herself. And so, yeah, she's when she starts, actually making good choices and responsible like comments for the family. It was Althea in that moment actually who was just like emotionally responding like, "Oh no, we're not going to do that plan that Brashen's proposing. That's ridiculous." Because she just doesn't want to like do something with Brashen, and she thinks like the Paragon. I don't even think she was thinking that far actually. I think she was just like she was in an emotional like situation with Brashen being in her house at that moment, and she wasn't thinking straight, and she immediately says no. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, "Whoa, don't say no! Like this is the only great solution to this situation. Like Althea, like just cool down." And it was Malta that was the person that got everyone to go forward with it, thinking logically. So yeah, that was great. That was the real start of her turn. I think you nailed it. And then one of the interesting things though, I think the younger kids in this family have kind of been like ignored by the elders. Like I think Ronica thinks that was one of her flaws. Like she was taking on too much of the duties herself, and she wasn't training Keffria and kind of to follow in her footsteps and manage the family's affairs. So I think she kind of ignored her own kids, and I think that kind of trickled down, and like for whatever reason Malta and Selden have been kind of ignored by everyone in this household and have been raised by servants and nannies and things. And we barely even get a sense that Selden exists. And because like we're in all these different other characters' POVs, and they kind of just always ignore Selden until finally later Malta is spending more time with Selden, and I think is more mature and she's less self-centered. And so now we kind of see Selden as a real person, as an individual, and who has his own personality and has his own take on things. And that was cool, I think, to see like, this has been maybe a fault in the family of like ignoring everyone and being too wrapped up in their own dramas. And I think, see Malta kind of coming out of that as I think a lot because she gets exposed to all these other lives and memories, that it opens her up and to be a more kind of empathetic person who wants to be thinking about all these other people or society in a way she hadn't before. But this is very deep, complicated stuff going on in that family.
It's amazing. And I guess like, so this could lead me kind of into the next point of this book, which I almost forgot about before this stream. And I was like, how can we not talk about this? So we finally get to, Malta's redemption arc. I'm starting to like her again. She's being more mature and reasonable for the most part. And we finally get to the ball where she is going to be announced as a woman. And, her internal monologue is less childish about it. She's just kind of appreciating it, which is cool. She's like, you know what? I earned this. I deserve it. I'm going to enjoy myself. Like it could not have been like a more absurd night. I mean, like there's so many things going on that
oh my
night.
God. Yeah. They were not prepared to meet like the satrap, and for the satrap to be like flirting with Malta. She was not prepared to deal with that. And then it's just like, I think Hob is doing interesting.
David Resthart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, David. And then just like the whole like thing around courtship and balls, like, oh, the person that's courting me like left me with and is now dancing with someone else. And so like my entire life is now different and changed. And she was just so melodramatic in those moments, but it made sense. It made sense. Like she didn't know that Rain was, chatting with the Cirilla for, because of learning information. And so it was so dramatic for her. It was crazy. She thought like her whole relationship was going down in flames. And
Yeah.
the and then everyone is starting to leave early, and she's like, I don't want to leave early, and then she has no clue that the town is going to be burning around them,
Yeah.
and then they leave, and then they get run off the road and almost die in the carriage crash. I mean, it was just insane.
That
Yeah,
whole scene was just like boom, 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 boom. Like being in Malta's head for that was just really just entertaining to read because
yeah,
she
and
was
yeah,
just like everywhere in her head. She was
yeah,
like, I have to deal with this now. Like, I didn't anticipate the satrap coming to dance with me, but here we go. Like, and then she's
yeah,
like trying to seize opportunity. She's just like, okay,
yeah,
save my dad then. Like,
yeah,
what? You're literally like not even bargaining, like making commands or like trying to negotiate with like the most probably powerful person in
yeah,
this
yeah,
world, at least this part of the world.
yeah, yeah. No,
Um,
totally. I love that she wasn't backing down. She was gonna, and she was gonna like insult him, or at least be clear about like, oh, this is why you have the Chelsea ships. So she was giving it back to him a little bit, and yeah, it was great. That was awesome. But yeah, that whole ball scene like was a great kind of like convergence and mini climactic section there for the Bingtown stuff. Just so tense. Did not know how it was going to end or play out, or if people were going to die. But it
yeah,
was. I was worried about what was going to happen with like her and Rain, because I got the feeling that I wanted them to be together and to go back to the Rain Wilds, and then the fact that they did, and then Ronica was the only one that stayed back. Like the way that all played out was, I think, pretty satisfying. And I'm like, oh my god, what's this going to be like? And then the Rain Wild section did not disappoint, because it was just like completely new world building going on with this treetop basically town, and Malta like recovering physically, and Selden just like becoming a Rain Wilder, and
that was wild. I mean,
yeah,
it's cool to like see the different cultures
yeah,
play out because there's we get like these big cultural events where like the traders ball, or I think that's what it's called, I'm not sure,
yeah.
but there's so many
Harvest Ball, maybe.
customs.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, we get these small snippets of like Hob just trying to, not even trying to, but she just has a way of conveying the important things of cultures through events, like arriving at the ball
yeah, yeah,
in a coach, and who you arrive with and
yeah,
how you
yeah,
arrive is like we get that that's an important part of that culture just because of the way that she describes these things. Like,
yeah, yeah.
and then the Rain Wild is just like a whole nother, like it feels like a whole nother place completely, with the treetop houses, and like the things that are normal there just are bizarre kind of elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that was a really fun section to read for me, and it made me a lot more excited to get to the Rainwild Chronicles.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm now very much looking forward to those. It's interesting. Like this feels like a completely different series essentially than Farseer did.
Yes.
Like you could read this easily without having read the Farseer trilogy. This takes place in a different part of the world. It's totally different characters, like its own plot from start to finish. And so yeah, this is interesting because I was wondering how much the series were going to overlap, and so far it's basically zero. But now that they have freed a dragon who's out in the bat, I imagine that that's going to have some ramifications for the Fitz series as well, and like the Six Duchies. But because there was some mention of like the dragons going from this town. Treehog is it the name, and then
Yeah,
they would be
how I was
animated
saying.
and go to the dragon graveyard. And so like, was that the same dragon graveyard as at the end of Assassin's Quest, or is that something different? I have no clue, but I can see with the dragon stuff, I think there's going to be some series overlaps, but yeah, this feels like a completely different series, which is nice. The style of it with the multi POV third person, just so different from the first person Fitz books, and yeah, it feels like its own unique unique thing for sure.
Do you know, is this happening in concurrence with
Oh, I have no clue.
Farseer, before, after? Like,
No clue.
I
No
don't think
clue.
it's before, because I feel like, but maybe not. I was confused because I was like, there's no way this is before, because there's no way a dragon would be alive in the other part of the world not know
Yeah.
about it. But then I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
well, wait a second. Uh, if this happened in concurrence with Farseer, then the Rainwild and Bingtown and the Cursed Shores would know about the dragons that
Oh yeah. Hold on.
happened.
Theo dropped in. I just don't want us to spoil
Oh, hey,
anything
Thea.
while he's because he hasn't read Madship yet. But yeah, after you get through it, feel free to come
Thanks for
back, see
stopping by,
what
Theo.
we
Yeah,
got.
it'll be up on the channel for you to come back and watch later on. So
Oh yeah, Thea. I think
sorry you
Madship
can't hang
will
out.
be up much more your thing than Ship of Magic, just because it's a lot less of a slow burn. It
Yeah.
feels like epic things are just continually happening. Maybe not at like a John Gwynn or Sanderson pace, but for a Hobb book, this was like crazy fast pace. Yeah.
Yeah, all of the setup and the stuff that was quote unquote slow in uh in the first book definitely pays off so far.
Oh yeah.
So
But you better get out of here before
thanks
you
for
hear
stopping
something
by
that
though.
spoils,
Yeah.
that spoils something.
You too, Thea. Thanks for stopping
Enjoy
by.
Sunday.
So yeah, I
No, but
mean,
I don't know where this takes place on the timeline, and I kind of like not knowing it. Just the less the better in terms of just like what I can glean from the books. But after I finish Live Ship, maybe it'll be clear, or maybe we'll look it up and see how it fits in timeline wise.
yeah, it's not
Because I'm
really,
curious
it
about
doesn't
that. Yeah, right.
matter. But I was thinking about it because I was like, man, there's a lot of big of like you'd think that the way that the satrap is talked about and the relationship with Bingtown and the Cursed Shores, like you'd think that would be big enough political information for the people in the Six Duchies to care about that. Like, there's
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
some
yeah.
political
It is weird.
turmoil
I
going
think that like
on
yeah,
between
yeah,
this Jamalia and the rest of the Cursed Shores because of this dupe of a
yeah,
freaking satrap. I mean, and
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's going
They're
to
on the
end up
same
affecting
continent.
the whole world. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They're on the same shore. They're on the same continent. It is a little weird that they treat the Six Duchies as like on the other side of the world, but because it's these societies seem pretty insular, and it does seem a little weird. There's not more interaction between those, but maybe after this series we'll see some more of those overlaps. I'm hoping that like we end up seeing some that they are taking place concurrently, or that once we get into the next Fitz trilogy, like we'll see some ramifications of the Live Ship stuff and maybe some character crossovers. But I would love that. But it does seem a little odd that there's like they're on the same coast and the same continent, and like
Yeah.
they're treated like there's no interaction at all, and the cultures are so different. Those barbarians up there in the Six Duchies, yeah, it is a little strange. But can we chat about the satrap for a moment? Like,
Yeah,
he is
yes.
a
That's
buffoon.
kind of
Like
why I wanted to
this maybe, yeah, yeah.
go ahead.
This maybe is like my least favorite aspect of both Farseer and Live Ship is that Hobb went so far with like with like the villain character, like Regal in Farseer, and Costco, is it Costco?
Yeah,
In this series where
Magnadon
like
Costco or something.
they're just complete like monarch buffoons who like it's not my preference. Like it's just so tiresome for me to read, and like the way that he treats like Cirilla is that was my least favorite section of this whole thing to read. Even though Cirilla herself is a compelling character, like the satrap that we see, and like just being around him like was so tiresome because he's just completely drunk on power and has obviously was not prepared for this or given adequate like behavior management as a kid or by anyone, and it's just like the extreme version of what like someone like Malta could become if they never grow up or mature and are given absolute power and everything they ever want.
I also can't stand reading about the satrap, but I think like obviously I think Hobb has done this on purpose because I don't know, the way I'm viewing it with him is he obviously sucks. Uh but when we read about him now get to see what everybody around him, like we feel what everybody around him feels.
Yeah.
Like okay, this is what these people are dealing with. This is horrible. Like I get why Cirilla is acting the way that she's acting. Like it all makes sense because he really does.
It makes sense also why like the whole kingdom is crumbling, basically, because he's completely incompetent, and he had this is very realistic and historical because in the history of hereditary monarchies, this happens where like you have a very responsible great ruler, and it seems like Costco's father was a very responsible ruler, or at least a good person from Cirilla's point of view. And hey Shad,
hey Shad.
And then the whole kingdom gets passed to the son, and who's to say that someone's child is a capable ruler just because they share the genes of someone else. So it's a very believable like issue that happened with this absolute monarchy, essentially. And one of the issues with monarchy, and so it's all believable. And you're right, we do get this insider view of like, oh, this kid is completely incompetent, and it makes sense that everything is crumbling, and you then root for like a Bingtown rebellion and for them to be independent. And I guess it is helpful in terms of like you get this insight instead of it being like vague and through hearsay you learn about like the satrap and you're like, what's going on with this? Like to see it so close through Cirilla's POV, we can then I think be fully happy if like Jamalia completely crumbles and Bingtown goes independent, and it makes us more upset when we hear people defending the satrap, like Davad Restart, like the wise satrap's coming, like creating caricatures like Costco or Regal, like it's effective in making your blood boil, like getting you emotional. Yes. They're so horrible, and some of my favorite authors do it, like Gwyn and Cornwell. Like they create these absolutely loathsome villains that don't have a single like redeemable quality and do horrible things to characters that you like, and so you just it might be a little uncomfortable, but I guess it serves its purpose really well.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess like it just goes to show for Cirilla, I guess I enjoyed reading her. I get why she is. I mean, she's an interesting character as well because she's obviously got her own ulterior motives for doing what she's doing on top of the satrap just like being insufferable. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that will be interesting to see.
I think she's very easy to empathize with. Like,
yes.
She's like this intellectually curious person. She's like an academic at heart, and she's interested to see Bingtown. And she was brought to this court at a young age, but then was treated respectfully by the previous satrap. And then all of a sudden, she's basically enslaved to this horrible kid ruler, and you just feel so much compassion for her situation. Like she's just stuck. And so you want her to figure out a way out. And so her whole story was really easy to root for her to help Bingtown and help her get away as well from her situation. But man, her getting like just becoming a sex slave on the ship was rough. Like that's really rough to read. And then but then to see how she used her situation as like motivation to like not go along with the satrap anymore and actually try to undermine him, and then figure out a way to help Bingtown. Like that was all very satisfying, that she had agency in her situation as well, and figured out ways to, to put the situation at her advantage when she realized like, oh, everyone else is dead around the satrap and I can now keep him drugged. And
yeah,
like that was then really, really nice to see her take action and have some power and agency. But it was rough. It was rough for a little while there with her POV. I don't know. I maybe would have liked her realizing all that and having that power without, being enslaved and repeatedly sexually assaulted. That seems like maybe something we wouldn't necessarily see now if this trilogy were written like in the 2020s.
Right.
Like this is written in the late 90s, and seems like a bit of a relic of a few decades ago.
Yeah, and I didn't necessarily like that aspect, as I didn't need any added fodder for thinking that the satrap sucked. Like, I didn't need him making good on that promise to know that he was an awful human being. Like I believed he was already an awful human being before that.
Yeah. And I think Hobb used it as this like personality shifter, like a motivator for Cirilla to completely go against the satrap and go to her own purposes. But I think she could have had her realize that and change without becoming sexually assaulted by the Chalcidian captain. That might have been something I could have done without in the book. But that's probably the only thing in there that really like had me questioning, like, oh, this I'm not sure we needed this. But otherwise, though, like that whole I enjoyed that we got that POV, since like it added to the whole convergence feeling of the book.
Yes,
because they're on that journey to Bingtown, and we leave them for like long portions. And so like when we're in Bingtown and we're like, what's going on with the satrap's journey? Like, have they gotten to Bingtown yet? We're like waiting for this arrival, and then it finally happens right around the time of like the ball, and so it just all these different things are coming to a head at the same time, and just added to that really epic convergence feeling.
Well, we're 42 minutes in and we haven't touched Wintrow and Kennit.
Yeah.
Are you ready to get into all that? Yeah. Because holy cow. I mean, that whole there's so much that happens with Kennit in his crew in this. I mean, like, we could probably just talk about that. I think one of the reasons I had I think an overall like emotionally much better time with this book than Ship of Magic is because we had so little Kyle. Like, it was such a relief, for me that they chained Kyle up in a basement in the beginning of this book, and then we don't see him for the entire rest of the book. And it was just that we didn't have to deal with that other very emotionally manipulative, self-centered character throughout this book, and then just could really focus more on Wintrow without dealing with his father, who was so mean to him continually. What a relief for me. And then so Wintrow's more on his own, and so he's not dealing with his father drama. But then Kennit becomes his kind of replacement father. And it was so fascinating to me, like how Wintrow was relating to Kennit, and it's like he's trying to constantly like wrestle internally, like, is Kennit a bad person? He seems to not be a noble person with noble intentions, but he's doing all of these things that have good consequences, like morally, for like freeing slaves and trying to build up towns for on the pirate isles for these people. And he's realizing that like maybe Kennit is a good person. Like, he's trying to wrestle with it. Like,
does these good actions that have good consequences make him a good person, or like I think it's also all wrapped up in jealousy he's feeling that Kenneth's getting close to Vivacia, and he's like immediately just jealous of Kenneth and Vivacia's relationship and him getting more distant from Vivacia, and so he like has this inclination against Kenneth, but then eventually he gets turned around to thinking like Kenneth is this prophet who's doing all these great things, and he's just going back and forth and it's so fascinating because it's like I don't think Wintrow has understood Kenneth at all in the end, because like it's more complex than Kenneth's good or bad. Like he's this very like emotionally and psychologically stunted individual from like this traumatic upbringing he had, and he is like has very selfish intentions and not always good intentions for others, but does these good things. So it's just very complex. and Wintrow's caught up in it all, and I was just so in plot. There's like Wintrow and Maya in here, because like they had some magical linking where they all could like feel each other's thoughts, and Vivacia always has the going on, but like Wintrow and Kenneth had it for a little bit too. And so like they had this moment of like true empathy with each other, and so they have this bond because of that, which is part of why I just love fantasy, because you just don't have that kind of stuff in realistic fiction. But like they have this very close connection where Kenneth feels closer to Wintrow than anyone else. And he almost, I think, feels like Wintrow is almost like a younger version of himself. And he wants to like protect Wintrow and try to make sure like some of the bad things that happened to him when he was younger don't happen to Wintrow. I was just utterly wrapped up in all of it. I loved it all.
I think that, you know, the linchpin to this whole like relationship working, I mean, Kenneth is really the guy that I don't know if he foresaw all the details of how it was going to happen, but he's the one that made this happen. He developed a relationship with Vivacia. He's the one that got Vivacia to trust him, because Wintrow trusts Vivacia, and he knew that he was going to have to get Wintrow to buy into what he was doing at some point. He knew that. The easiest way to do that would be to get in good graces with Vivacia and to get Vivacia to really trust Kenneth, because then Wintrow could feel that Vivacia trusted Kenneth, and because of that, maybe Wintrow would then trust Kenneth. Like, and that's pretty much what happened. And then he's like, well, I can't have him and Etta at odds. So then he compiles this plan to get Etta and Wintrow to become closer, because he knows that eventually he's going to need an heir, right? To the Vivacia. Like, what the heck? This dude is insane.
Yeah, this plan to like pawn his own girlfriend off on a kid for the just purely selfish intention of like having someone who might be more like pliant to like be on the Vivacia if Wintrow doesn't work out, like that he'll have this other heir. Like, it's such like an ill-intentioned plan that does not take into account the feelings of Etta or Wintrow, but like the result, it continually happens with Kenneth. The result is like Etta starts to have her emotional barriers broken down, and as she gets close to someone like Wintrow and feels like she can mentor him, and Wintrow can have like this mother figure and this teacher in like, you know, fighting and street smarts, and Etta can learn how to read from Wintrow. It's like it has all these great benefits. It has all these great benefits, and Kenneth keeps thinking that like, oh, it's working. Like they're getting close. They're going to start like having a sexual relationship. But like really they're just getting close more in terms of like as friendship or even like mother-child sort of bond, and they're teaching each other things, and like it has such a great effect, and Kenneth is just like blind to all of that stuff.
I know.
I feel like Kenneth maybe slowly is becoming more like emotionally and psychologically aware of others. Like I feel like Hobb gave us some really interesting hints about his like backstory in this, like with
Yes,
him visiting his mom and then having these thoughts about like his dad
that
and
was
like
wild.
this pirate who came through and like I think burned their village and maybe killed his dad and like removed the tongue of his mom, and then he became like he started on the ship, like working on the ship of this pirate Egret
I
or whatever
think
that guy's name is.
Egret the Great, Egret the Terrible. I
Yeah,
don't remember what it is.
but you get these bits of Kenneth's backstory, and it's like okay, like there's a lot of trauma back here that which is maybe why Kenneth is now the way he is. But like I also feel like there's starting maybe to be some like character growth with Kenneth as well, as he's realizing like he can form real connections with others, and it's not everyone's not just selfish and almost like sociopathic like he might think they are. Um, yeah, and Matt down there looks like he said
Yes, first of all, good
the
morning,
Edda
Matt.
dynamic, Kenneth and Wintrow, so well written but so awkward. Yeah, it is definitely awkward, but so complex.
It's extremely complex, and it's probably like the most, I don't know, just interesting relationship. Although there's a lot of
Yeah,
interesting relationships going on in this, it's just so bizarre. Like even like how you said Kenneth, we obviously see that Kenneth maybe is changing, but like all of a sudden we will just get this quick like 3 paragraph thing at the end of a chapter that's just like him being a psychopath again. Like the thoughts. Like it, as soon
yeah,
as I feel like
yeah,
he's
yeah.
learned something, it's just like, oh well, they're becoming too close. I wanted them to be close, but this kid, like, just crazy.
Yeah,
Like he always is thinking
yeah,
something
yeah.
crazy. Right when I think he's maybe like turned a corner and is like normal. No, I think he's just actually insane and only cares about what he wants to do.
And what he wants is to assert control, I think, over his surroundings. Like he wants to be the king. He wants
Yes.
control because I think from the events that happened when he was younger, he didn't have any power to stop the tragedy of what happened to his family. His dad had all these grand plans of building a little utopia on their little island, and now he wants control. He wants to build towns exactly as he wants. And like, why don't people just listen to me? If they just listened, then everything would be right. Like he just I think classic like narcissistic kind of control freak thoughts he has when we're in his POV. Like and uh, but what's interesting is that like he does have good ideas for how to protect the towns and lay out a new town. And Wintrow sees that and is like, oh, let's I should help because I should help like people respect Kenneth because he actually does have good effects and good ideas. Um, but by the end, Wintrow is like, I am Kenneth's prophet. Like it just got so weird by the end
It
where when
really
it was like
did.
Wintrow was almost like worshiping him. And yeah,
It's crazy because
yeah,
we, as the reader, we see Kenneth and we read these things and his thoughts, and we're like, you are insane, man. Like, I
yeah,
mean, I love reading about Kenneth, but you are actually insane. But he believes the stuff that he thinks. Therefore, Vivacia believes Kenneth, and
yeah,
because they are linked, Wintrow is finally like, man,
yeah, yeah,
this guy is weird, but he really does think he's doing the right thing, and I can't deny all of it. He is freeing slaves. He's excuse me. He said, what's the town? I forget the town that he Divvy Town.
Divitan,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, he's like, you guys just if you would have listened, like he was right. He told you all this. He told you this was going to happen. Like you didn't listen. So he's not the bad guy. Like were they all surrounding him in the water, and then
yeah.
Wintrow is just like, just listen. Like it's really crazy to see Wintrow fully just give in and stop questioning
Yeah,
anything
yeah, yeah.
that Kennett's doing.
And there's a lot going on with Wintrow too. Like he, for this whole series, has been kind of thinking back on his peaceful monastery and like wanting to go back there and like that's his destiny, like that's where he's like that's his place where he feels at home. But now he's getting I think a little wiser and realizing like you could be a priest of Sa, you could be like a Buddhist, basically anywhere you are, because like it's about your state of mind. And he's realizing like, oh, I could, follow the way of Sa on this ship, like, and I don't have to be at the monastery. Like he's, I think, learning some interesting, wise lessons and growing in some ways. And even at the beginning when he doesn't think he can do the amputation, and then like that whole stuff I thought was written so vividly. Like I felt like I was there in the room with like the surgery happening, and it was so tense, and Wintrow like having that confidence to do that, and just doing it well, and saving Kennit. Like I was just so engrossed by that whole thing. And then as we go on, we get one of the like absolute most like batshit scenes I can ever remember, where they go to the other's island, and Kennit's just like, oh, go off alone on the beach, do your thing. And then Wintrow finds the serpent, and he's like freeing the serpent. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Like, free this enslaved serpent. And like from the first book, I didn't get a good picture of who like the others were. Like, I was like, they were described pretty weirdly. We only met one of them, I think. I had no clue there was like a horde of these weird creatures.
No, we just kind of got that, like the scene where Kennit was there, and like going to the Oracle, and then obviously the like thing where nothing is to go off the island, and he's like, well, I'm gonna take it because I want it. That's like the only part like we really get about the others. And I agree, it was very like, I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're like a product of the Rainwild, like bizarre, absolutely bizarre.
No clue, but they're all streaming out of their hiding places, and like the way that like Wintrow's goodness of like risking his own life to save the enslaved serpent, like he thought he might die once he enslaved the serpent, like, but he just did it because it was the right thing to do. He could see this entrapped creature, and he frees the serpent, gets badly burned in the process, but then like because he freed the serpent then helped him and saved him and got him back to the ship and killed all of those crazy others who were keeping it enslaved. But that was all very both interesting because it was just crazy, but also very satisfying to see kind of the karma of like doing the good thing, freeing the serpent, and then helping Wintrow. And the same thing, the very similar thing, actually. I just thought of that. I didn't realize the parallel between Malta risking her own life to save, what's the dragon's name? Tartuglia? I don't remember.
I'll try to find it.
Oh, man.
Tantaglia.
Tafulia?
Like a Pokemon.
Yeah. But Malta risking her life to save the entrapped dragon, and then the dragon's freed and is like going about their business, like, oh, but these little mosquitoes, these little people whose lives are so short, like I shouldn't care about them, but they helped save me, so I'm gonna help them now. I just realized the parallel between Malta and Wintrow saving someone at the expense of their own safety, and then they that karma comes back to help them. That
was really cool. And there was a couple scenes so far in the series that almost kind of felt like they had like a horror element to them. Like
that scene for sure. The others are like,
I was like, whoa. Like, I mean, and Wintrow was just like in this ridiculously like tunnel visioned frenzy to get, I mean, like his fingernails are coming off, like he doesn't care, he's got to get this dragon out. Like, it was so like he was captured by the animal. I mean, and then all of a sudden, like, I was so distracted by all the bizarreness that was going on that I didn't even think about it being She Who Remembers.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I was like, oh my god, this is she.
Yeah, I thought
Like,
because Malkin in certain other interludes thought like that Vivacia or some other live ship maybe was maybe Vivacia even was she who remembers, or at least like one who remembers. And so they were tapping into the fact that they actually were like previous dragons and serpents or something. But yeah, I was not prepared for the awesomeness of like, oh, this entrapped serpent that Winter just saved is she who remembers. Like this is the serpent with all the memories who's supposed to be the guide. And like at the end when she's like, oh, I'm gonna go find the serpents and like guide them and give them my knowledge, I'm like, yes, yes, like this is so good.
yes,
Like just um like that this slow build of the serpent and dragon plot has been just so intriguing. It's been just like little tiny bits and pieces we get like over these long books, but it's now forming into this coherent picture of like, oh, this was how the Serpents and Dragons Society worked. Like they would be young serpents. They'd go up the river when they were ready. They'd be guided. They'd go into the soil in the rain wilds and form these like hard wooden cocoons, and then
yeah,
they'd eventually hatch with the sun and be full dragons. But like it's the last vestiges of their whole species is like hanging on by a thread right now, with like the one dragon now is out, and the last group of serpents who can remember, and with she who
yes,
remembers Ness. Like I'm so curious to see how this is gonna go. Like I'm because the seasons are changing, so like they hinted like, oh, there might not be enough time for them to go up the river and like form the cocoons in time, and for the whole process, Blake. I'm here for it. I want all of them to go up the river. Like, let's hatch all these new dragons into the world. And also, like, I've just loved the serpent characters. Like, they're very almost like pure, and they feel very non-human also, which I love. Like
yeah,
Caesarea and Malkin and Shriver, like these serpent characters, like they don't feel human at all the way they think and relate to each other. But it's been so cool that they're just like going around gathering this group to them. And like there was a very intense scene where they like they came to that live ship, and they
yes,
got him to remember who he was, and then he
yeah,
willingly like disintegrated into the different memories as all the different serpents ate his plankings. And I'm like, oh my god, from the POV of like the serpents, this is one thing, but like from the POV of someone on the ship, like their ship
yeah,
just got destroyed and eaten, and all of the humans just died on that ship. But like from the serpent's POV, it's like, oh my god, we found someone who remembered, and now we're gaining more memories. And it's like we freed this like non-living dead spirit of a serpent. I don't even know whatever they are. Like that's one thing we
yeah,
could chat about. Like the serpents think that they're dead, but and that it's like just a mercy that they ate up the live ship, because like it's like this dead soul of an old dragon or serpent that got like placed in this wood. But I think something more complex is going on,
there
and I think
definitely
one of
has to be.
like they're not just like dead. This is like a new living creature with its own personality, its own kind of identity. And I think that's tied into one of the themes of the series too, because I think Amber at one point was telling Paragon like, don't worry about all like the old stuff that happened to you. Like you're you now. Like you can be your own self and make your own decisions. And so I think it's tied up in one of the themes of the series is like that. Like if you're sentient, if you have your own thoughts and your own emotions, like you are yourself. Like it doesn't matter how like the terrible things that happened in the past or the things that got you there. Even if you're like the births from like a dead dragon, like you're still you now and living and
Yeah,
valuable. But like we got also hints that something weird is going on with Paragon. Maybe one of the reasons Paragon is insane is that there was a mention that the Rainwilders made him with mixed planking from different like
yes,
wizard wood logs. And when Paragon says like I'm two people, like he keeps telling
yes,
people like I'm two people, like there's two of me. Like no one knows what he's talking about. but I think we can put two and two together and be like, oh my god, he has like he was made from like the two different Wizardwood logs and like the memories and like spirit or whatever of two different serpents, and he's
They're
now
clashing.
combined into one, and so like that's why he's so maybe mentally unstable. And then we also got hints that like his like human owners like maybe weren't too great and something bad happened with them as well. But so like yeah, lots of interesting stuff going on with them and with what the identity of the live ships are. That we got that reveal here in the second book is so cool. Like
Yeah.
that
I don't fully understand it yet, but I mean, Matt
yeah.
was right. He said finally getting some serpent payoff in the She Who Remembers chapter. I loved that chapter. I had like previous to this, I had no idea what was going on with the serpents, but I didn't even mind reading about them. Like I was still intrigued by whatever their like goal was, even though I didn't get it. And there's like Matt says here, I mean, there's themes of this throughout. I mean, we see it with the Fool, talking about, you know, gender not mattering. It's about people. It's about what we do. It's about how we love each other. Like, I mean, there's lots of themes of that. There's themes of we see it with Patience, who shouldn't, you know, in the first book, should really have no desire to want to be part of Fitz's life.
Yeah.
But does anyway. And then, I mean, multiple times we see in this one, like Amber, you know, just being like, just kind of talking Paragon into being comfortable with himself and being okay with being who he is, whoever that is. She does it with Althea too, right?
Yeah,
I think
like Althea should be comfortable. Like she doesn't have to conform to the classic female gender norms of Bingtown. Like she should just be her, and like and also with Brashen, I think also and just and with the memories though, it's tied up in such an interesting thing because
yes,
like what is the tie between memory and identity? Is it, are they one and the same? And like if you get drowned in memories of all these different people like Malta did, like then she has a tough time hanging on to her own self as her identity. Like, who's Malta? I can remember all these other events and actions and people, but and then that was so cool. Like that part near the end when she gets drowned in memories and is seeing like God knows how many years of stuff happening like in her mind all around her. Like that is the stuff that just can't happen in like realistic literature. That I think Philip Chase would probably call it something like fantasy is what Hobb was doing here was literalizing like a metaphor of like,
yes,
when we go into a place with lots of memories or you know, like we get a sense maybe for the history of a place or all the things that happened to the people that went here before us, but like their Malta actually literally lived it and was just steeped in like this older civilization, these other people's lives, and it's like it's overwhelming to try to take in other people's lives and so many and but at the same time, the more that you can experience things that happen outside yourself, the more understanding you have of, you know, the world and other people. And so like Malta's basically like she's hanging on to her identity by a thread and herself, but she's also just like becoming wiser and deeper at the same time, which is so interesting.
It like, I guess before we get too deep into the Malta thing, I just want to kind of wrap up the relationship between the serpents and the live ships, because we've over the course of the book, the serpents, we and the serpents do not understand quite why the serpents are drawn to the live ships. I mean, even like Malkin is just like, I don't get it. Like it doesn't make any sense, but it feels like She Who Remembers. It feels right. Like we have to pursue this because it just, I can't shake it. It's not right, but it feels so close to being right that we have to figure out what's going on here. Like,
yeah, you're right. That was such a mystery for a long time of like what their connection was. Yeah.
Well, now we kind of know, and it's like that leads kind of into the whole, Malta thing. And it's like, I mean, even Wintro was just like, I don't know. I still don't understand everything yet. Some links are starting to be drawn together, but
Mhm.
even Wintro was just like, on the way back to the ship, he's like, how do I hide from Vivacia that she's not alive? Like, she's not really
Yeah,
alive. So I'm like, what does that mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
do they kill these dragons and all these memories by making them into live ships? Or
Yeah, they
what?
mentioned something like when they opened the Wizardwood logs, when the Rainwilders opened them to like carve them up, that something like white was taken out that was seemed like it was the like the like the living like organic piece of the serpent or the dragon,
Yes.
like that was like taken out and discarded. But then like and then the live ships though they're still like sentient and they gain the memories and experiences of like the human crews that work on them before they're quickened and then like it's just yeah we're not given all of it yet, we're just given hints as to like what the live ships are and like that they're this amalgamation of memories between like the serpent they were before or the dragon they were before like the people that are on their ship like over the generations and like Wintro feels so bad that he has to like maybe tell Vivacia that she's not alive, but at the same time he's not like he's wrong. Like Vivacia is alive and she's her own
Yeah.
thing, her own person, like ship, whatever, uh, individual, and like he just hasn't wrapped his mind around like maybe the metaphysical complexities of all that.
So
But
this
yeah,
whole story arc has gotten me like, this is the most like, I don't know what to call it, like conspiracy theory. Like I'm trying. This is the part of this trilogy that has made me think the most of how overall this magic is related to the Farseer trilogy, because there's a lot of similarities between how Verity and
oh yeah,
what's the I forget the old lady's name that was part of the original
uh,
uh
Kettle. No,
Kettle.
yes, no.
Yes, they seem to understand and know something about. I mean, Verity is literally pouring himself
Yeah,
into these
yeah, yeah,
dragons
yeah,
to get them to come alive, and
yeah,
they call it the skill. There's the skill river. There's all of these. I mean, and it feels very similar to the way that the dragons and the memories in the Rainwild area of the world operate. I mean, there's
yeah.
in the live ships, it's like three generations of the family are pouring themselves
Mhm.
into the live ship, and the live ship is
Yeah,
becoming alive and becoming its own entity,
yeah,
but
yeah,
also as a conglomeration of
yeah, yeah,
all of it. Like, it feels very like somehow this is all going to connect, and the magic is going to mix. Like, maybe the Rainwild and the Cursed Shores people are operating with the same magic type of magic, but they just don't call it the skill. They call it something different. They
yeah, yeah,
just call it memories. But Verity seems to understand something, that memories and like pouring yourself into something like gives something else life. I don't know. Like, this had me theorizing the
yeah.
most, because I'm
Oh
trying
yeah,
to link the two worlds
that's
together.
interesting. Yeah, it's been about 3 years I think since I read Farseer, so I haven't really been actively trying to make connections between the series. But that now that you're talking about it, that seems like it makes total sense that there's a real connection between the magics going on. Uh, yeah, that this is why I should not wait so long. I should read Tawny Man not so long after Live Ship and keep that series going to because there are probably very interesting connections. But yeah, that's fascinating. That was great. I love
That
hearing
had
about
me
that.
theorizing the most, because I'm like, man, there's too many similarities. I hope we read Tawny Man together as well.
Nice. Yeah, we
Um,
should.
there's too many
And
there's
the
too many
yeah.
similarities between them that it has to somehow come together. Like, I don't know if it's going to come together like telepathically, like the skill does. like maybe Verity will be able to, who knows, like in the dragons that he has released with Kettle, like maybe they're all going to start connecting and talking telepathically. I don't know. I don't know. This we could go down so many rabbit holes that way, but that's like where my mind was going. And then
yeah.
to get back to Malta and that whole thing, like I mean, we see her being so incredibly the opposite of what she was in the beginning of this series, and to see like this might kind of annoy you. I don't know if it did, but the fact that she's doing all the selfless stuff really for one person, for Kyle, is like like
yes.
like she's gonna release a dragon and maybe kill herself just to get the dragon to get her dad back. Like
yeah. Yeah. I'm dreading that now. Actually, in the next book, like it's such a nice reprieve that we had, like a Kyle-less book. Like everyone is better off not having to deal with him, and I have trouble seeing him going on a redemption arc. Like he seemed too set in his thinking to go on a redemption arc. Like he seems, I hope he's more just like a plot device for everyone else to have more of their own growth and realizations of like, oh, we don't need this a-hole to control our lives. Like we can figure it out on our own. But I am now not happy that the dragon is probably going to go and free Kyle. But yeah, she, it was nice that she was doing something, you know, for someone else. And she was just, she was just so driven at the end to free the dragon. It seemed like I don't know, it wasn't just for Kyle though. Like it seemed like she was doing it also for the dragon's sake, and tied up with like, this is what Rain, and she's connected to Rain and like what he was working on and what he was trying to do. Yeah, it was all.
So we finally
finally
see Selden being used, like because he went to explore the town. You know, he's able to be like, you know, Malta wants to get to the dragon, but she doesn't really know the town yet. So Selden did, and then like it's nice to see them hanging out together, as like brother and sister. And then
it's nice,
you know,
that like he's very plucky too. Like he is not scared by, you know, the treetop stuff and going to the city. And even when
not till they get down there.
even when he's close to dying, like with Rain and the collapsing like buildings and stuff, like he's still like a trooper and like giving them ideas for what they could do. And it was great to see, like, just like even like Selden pop off the page. Like before he was in previously, like he was just like a little name that that hopped throughout here and there and like just totally forgotten. But like I really think that's because those POVs that we were in, it's like we're completely ignoring him. Like they didn't see him as an entity worth acknowledging. Like he's just like a little boy, and they were also wrapped up in their adult or teenage like dramas that they weren't giving him the time of day. So yeah, just I'm it's fun now that he is like this kid with a lot of personality, because I think he's probably gonna play some role going forward.
He's a perfect example of everything that I've witnessed so far in Robin Hobb's work, is that like there are no throwaway characters. Like he played a part. The part might have felt minimal, but he played a part in getting Malta to the point where she could do something like incredible. And I mean, this whole time Malta's doing this, everybody literally thinks that her and Selden are probably dead.
Yeah.
Because like the world's just like collapsing, and then Rain is the one that goes in there and he finds Selden, and like this whole it was just insane.
Meanwhile, maybe you can help me out here. What was the plan of Johnny Kupris? So like she feels like we're in her POV when she makes the deal with Rain that he can't go in the city anymore, and that like he can then go to Bingtown and get his allowance. She feels bad that she's manipulating Rain into accepting this. And I was curious, like, I didn't understand her side of it, like her plan. Like, there might be something else going on there that we didn't get revealed to us. But
I don't have answers, but I have theories. So this is why I wondered if the others were related to the Rainwild in some way, because, and this is a complete like conjecture theory, just like going off the rails here, potentially, but part of me feels like the elders of the Rainwild, like the heads of all these important families, are keeping a secret from the rest of the world and from the rest of even the generation below them on how Wizardwood actually. I think that they know that they're killing dragons.
Yeah.
I think that they know by using the Wizardwood logs that they are killing these dragons, but they don't care because they're making such an astronomical profit off of these Bingtown trader families by making the Wizardwood ships.
Yeah.
And I feel like my theory is that they're in cahoots with the island that the others are on to keep She Who Remembers locked up. But now all of that is blown away. Because now She Who Remembers is out and remembering things and can go and talk to the other serpents. And if all of these dragons don't come cocoon, then they can't keep making. They have one last Wizardwood log. That's it. So what are they going to do to make a profit after they make the last live ship? Or what are they going to do? Like, I don't know. I just had this whole, like, I think that part of the world is all connected in some wild way.
I think you're right. There are secrets. Yeah, there.
So I think Janny realizes that Rain is too close to coming to find the truth, that she just has to get him away. But then Malta comes in and is just like, it doesn't matter. Rain told me everything that he knew. So, like, I think Malta ruined Janny's plan. I think that Wintrow and Kenneth, by releasing She Who Remembers, that has to ruin some kind of plan. Or, like, I mean, I don't know. That's where my mind went with it. Because it's all got to get connected somehow, you'd think.
Yeah. And they still have the satrap. Like, they're protecting the satrap now.
Yes.
Which is interesting. Like, couldn't we have let him just be killed? But is there a dog there? Is that a dog?
Can you hear that? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that your dog?
It's my neighbor. No, it's my neighbor's dog.
Your neighbor's.
I have no control over it. Is it like, how loud is it?
It's pretty loud. It's okay.
I guess I'll mute myself when I'm not talking.
That's it.
They do not stop.
Oh man. That dog's howling.
Yeah. This is.
Oh man.
Welcome to our day every day.
Oh man, really?
Yeah. My wife used to work from home, so she would just sit here all day and listen to this. I don't know. So that's my theory, anyways, as to.
Yeah, no, I think you're right that the Rainwilders are. Yeah, there's still secrets that Hobb is withholding from us that I hope we're gonna get some reveals in book 3. But like, so much happened in this one, I don't even see where it's going. Like, are we gonna get a revolution? Like, is there gonna be a Bingtown independence movement? Are the serpents gonna go up the Rainwild River? Like, what's going on with, like, what's gonna happen with Kenneth? Like, I have no clue where it's going. Like, I can't even envision. Like, yeah,
there's way too many possibilities of things that can happen. I don't know.
Like, I want Rain and Malta to finally like become a couple, because they're both very interesting. Like Rain, we've gotten more insights into him, and he's a very interesting, deep character, and it seems like they're very well suited for each other. And so like, I want Rain and Malta to kind of figure things out with themselves, and it is fascinating that Malta seems to have, become attached to Rain even without ever seeing him, like, because he has his veil always on, which is, she's worried that he's going to be like some ugly monster, but I think we've gotten hints that he's like a very handsome boy and has not been affected by like what affects a lot of the other Rain Wilders.
Oh,
So
I didn't even.
I think Malt
I
is
didn't
in for
remember that.
I think there was one scene when we first are with like Johnny and Rain, and they're discussing like I don't know. I think we might have been in Johnny's point of view for that one, but I think we got hinted that like he was not affected same way other Rune Wilders are by like physically. So I don't think Malta's. I think Malta's in for a pleasant surprise whenever she actually sees what Rain looks like. But I want their relationship to develop a little more. I want Althea and Brashen to also become a thing, and like they just seem like really perfect for each other, and that they have mutual respect and also attraction. It's just like the perfect ingredients for a relationship. But it's like he's in a position of authority over her, and they're both responsibly thinking like, oh, this is not the right time. Like we should not do this now. But I do hope they have a happy ending, or at least I'm worried about what's going to happen to some of these characters because Hob is pretty ruthless. So I don't know if everyone's going to make it out of this series intact.
I don't think. Like, I think there's got to be some kind of loss at some point. Just because now we're so attached to everybody that it only makes sense that someone's got to get taken away.
Like not like please don't hurt my dear Wintrow. Like
I know.
I just love Wintrow so much. Like curious if the live ships are going to make it out of this. Like because like we saw that one live ship get devoured by the serpents. So it's like okay, they're not impregnable. They can be dissolved or killed and die. And I'm just curious what's going to happen to Paragon of Avacia. Oh, I guess one of the big things I'm looking forward to is that Paragon of Vivacia, like, there has to be this big convergence probably between Brashen, Althea, and Vivacia, and probably Kennet and Wintrow. Wait, and the Paragon, sorry. And then they meet up with the Vivacia, but they might have trouble finding the Vivacia because it's not at Divvytown anymore. I don't know.
Yeah,
I am looking forward to an eventual meeting where like Althea is like, "This is my ship, give me my ship back," and Vivacia's like, "Wait, Kennet is my captain, and I'm attached to Kennet now." And like what's gonna happen when they all meet again is gonna be interesting. Is the dragon is Titulia? What is like is that what is this dragon's name? Hold on,
I don't know. Matt, if you're still in here and you know.
Tintaglia.
It sounds like a pasta noodle or something.
Yeah. Like, are they going to do something crazy with the Vivacia? Like, is Tintaglia going to rescue Kyle and put Kyle back on the Vivacia? Like, I have no, like, oh, yeah, Matt got it.
There it is, Matt. Matt the man.
Like, man, I want a convergence though between those two ships. Like
I do too,
and it's like the craziness of what's going to happen with that.
It does. It sounds like I don't know. It just sounds like a pasta noodle.
But like I don't think we've seen the last of Ronica Vestrit. Like she went off to like her farmhouse. I don't think we've seen the last of her or Cirilla. I think.
How about Kefria?
Like, yeah.
That's a whole. I mean, whole other thing we didn't talk about. She's.
Oh my god! Oh yeah, she wants to go on the spy mission.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's probably going to be a major plot line in book 3.
There's so much. I'm trying to think right now of any major things that we didn't talk about because we talked about a lot. I'm interested to see what.
Like, I'm curious, there. Like, who saw the dragon? Because the dragon came out and like gave a big roar when she was freed. So I'm like curious if like what's going on with like did people in the town like Treehog like all see the dragon? Like now Rain was proven right. Like are people gonna respect Rain now and like realize he wasn't just this crazy dreamer kid?
Yeah,
that'll be fascinating. Oh, Matt's asking about Amber. No, we have not.
Yeah,
we have not.
We've that's a whole nother because she's got this weird connection to she feels this weird connection to Wizardwood, I guess.
Yeah, my prediction I said last chat, I thought, or my conjecture was that she might have been like a figurehead, like I was somehow like
Oh yeah.
disconnected and like made alive somehow. I still stand by that it's I predict that it's something like that is really crazy that explains Amber. Like I just don't think she's just like a regular human.
No,
Like,
she's not. And she wouldn't have as big a part in this story as she does if she wasn't going to be some major part of some major plot event. I don't think, at least. I mean, she's been she's kind of been the originator of getting the whole Paragon thread of the storyline going. I mean, her and Brashen and Althea all went to Paragon separately, and now they're all on Paragon on the water together. Like it's just a very cool. She's always believed in Paragon before Paragon even got on the water.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and she
I don't
understand
something
strange happened with her. I might have to go back and reread that little section in the middle where Malta came to visit Paragon, and then she collapsed. Malta collapsed, and then Amber brought her back to herself and rescued her, and like left some sort of mark on Malta, because later when she was getting ready for the ball, Kefri was like, "What's that weird mark on your neck?" And they didn't know.
Missed that.
And Kefri was like, "Oh, let me just cover it up with like some like makeup," and they covered it up.
Oh yeah, I do.
I don't know. There was something strange going on with Malta and Amber, and like they had some sort of connection at the end when Malta was like when Paragon was leaving, and Amber was looking back at Malta, and then Amber was thinking about Malta later on, and I don't know. There was some connection formed there, and I didn't get it. It might be worth rereading just to see what was going on, but maybe things will become more clear.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Amber doesn't have any like connection like Wintrow and Kennit do to a live ship, right? She just talks to Paragon. Or am I wrong about that? Like Paragon can't like hear or like he doesn't know what Amber is like thinking.
Oh, I don't know.
Right?
I don't know.
I feel like I don't
know.
Because the other live ships, they know, like when Wintrow goes back on the Vivacia, that's why he was worried. He's like, how am I going to keep this from her that she's not really alive? Like, he somehow got some knowledge from She Who Remembers. He's like, I can't keep it from her. She knows my thoughts. Like, but I don't think that Amber has that kind of connection.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Matt said they just talk.
Do we get an Amber POV even? Do we? I don't even know. I can't remember. Do you remember any Amber POV where we're in her thoughts, in her mind? Not sure.
I actually don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a very mysterious character. At one point, didn't Amber say something like that was referencing Wintrow? But I don't even know how Amber would know about Wintrow's situation, like a kid with a slave tattoo.
Yeah.
I don't know. She made a comment.
No, she's getting like visions.
Like it seemed like she had knowledge like beyond what was normally possible.
You're right. She's having like visions or dreams of like things that she doesn't understand. And then at one point in the book, she's like, I think that some of these things are going to start making sense. I think it was kind of around the same time where Paragon was realizing that he was his own entity, but also like freaking out for a second. Then he was just like, I am two people. Like, I think it was around that part of the book that Amber was just like, I have all these dreams I haven't been able to figure out, or these thoughts, and I think that they're going to start making sense. So I think they have to converge. You're right. The Paragon and Vivacia. So, wow, Amber.
Oh man, yeah, makes me want to jump into book 3. Like,
I know.
I'm in the middle of so many deep, heavy, like complex reads in terms of like psychologically complex and emotionally complex. Like I'm in the middle of Feast for Crows right now, and it's
Oh, are
just
you?
so heavy, like emotionally in almost every POV, and it's interesting because like I don't. It's fine. I might be in just this groove of these heavy, like dramatic, emotional reads because I'll then be reading Jade Legacy soon too to finish up that series,
Same. Yep.
and just it's like I just maybe we just have momentum going with this style of read, and we're just like in this zone with it. Uh, but man, it's one heavy read after the next. Like I'm hoping for some good stuff happening in where is it? Oh, Ship of Destiny there. I do like
Yeah, I
that the
have it.
title Ship of Destiny like
There we go.
that 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 bodes well. Ship of Destiny maybe. Like I feel like that it's a
What ship
positive
is it
setting.
though?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Maybe both. Like the title of a not that one. The title of this one is fun because I feel like it could apply to Paragon. He's referred to as a mad ship, but also like Vivacia as
She's
well.
kind of
Like dealing,
going mad.
yeah, dealing with like the trauma of the all the deaths that happened on her from the slave revolt, and then like all of the crazy stuff that's going on with Wintro and Kennett. So yeah,
We also see that she's got like this like almost addict type personality now towards attacking slave ships. She's
oh yeah,
like animalistically like just taking over and like this one's mine. Like she's becoming like addicted to like
oh
attacking
yeah.
and freeing these slave ships.
Oh
So
my god, how about the way that Kenneth like very intentionally psychologically manipulated Vivacia? It's
yes.
like like for their first pirate attack that he had Vivacia witness from afar, but not too close, and like the emotional manipulation he was doing, where he was trying to make Vivacia jealous of Edda, and in Edda's POV, it's like, oh my god, Kenneth's like treating me so amazingly, and I love Kenneth so much. And then from Kenneth's POV, he's just thinking about how he's manipulating Vivacia by using Edda, and it was just like, oh my, like, what great use of like multi POV there.
Yeah.
Uh, I loved Edda as a character, by the way. Like, that's another example of someone I thought was like a throwaway side character for a while, maybe in book one, but then like really blossomed into a complex, deep character with a big arc to them. Um, yeah, enjoying that character and her and Wintro kind of getting close and growing together. But there's a lot of characters that are deep and we care about. So Hobbs great at balancing the different POVs too. Just I I'm
By
really
the end,
impressed.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like I think well so far, if I had to compare, I think I'm enjoying live ship more than Farseer. I just connect with this overall like plotting and story, and the multi POV is definitely more of what I read and love.
I do love when
I just
Kenneth's
I think
charm
yeah.
talks to Edda.
Oh my god, I love the charm.
Even
Yeah,
Kenneth's just like he's always like surprised by it.
and
He's just like,
he
wait, I
like
didn't say that.
I love how he hates the charm, but
Oh,
he
so
still
much.
like won't get rid of it, and he still listens to it because it was like the charm that told him to like take Wintro, I think, to the other's island to get his oracle telling. So like he was
Yes.
just listening to the
Yeah.
charm about that, and like that is fascinating too. What's going on with the charm, and I want more. I want more of the charm for
And even
sure.
Vivacia is aware.
Yeah, like the charm could get into like Vivacious thoughts like really deeply,
She's
and the
like, I have
charm,
to try to
yeah,
keep him out.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh, just utterly fascinating stuff
Dang.
with that.
Well, we're pushing an hour and 40.
Yep.
Is there anything else you can think of, or guys in the chat? Is there anything we missed that you want us to touch on? I mean, I
Oh
got to
man,
kind of
what?
get rolling
Yeah,
pretty soon.
yeah. I think we covered. We couldn't cover all of it. It's a chunker where so much
Yeah.
happens. Like took a couple weeks to read too. So stuff probably happened in the beginning that I barely even remember was part of this book. Like
Yeah,
the stuff
there
with
was some stuff.
Althea on the Ophelia.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true.
Man,
Yeah, there was.
it's this is just like a chunker with so much great stuff. It's amazing how much is packed into this trilogy and just this book too. Like this book two feels satisfying on its own, and what a great solid book two of a trilogy.
Oh wow, I completely forgot about that part.
Ooh, yeah.
Then he loses his leg.
Oh,
Wow.
there's probably going to be great rewards for a reread on this, I imagine.
The plenty and the lack. Yeah, I remember I read Farseer physically last summer, and then before we did this, not because we were doing this, but I just wanted to go back and read it. I listened to
Mhm.
it all on audio, and I was like, wow, like I mean, the amount of stuff that I missed just simply because I was so enveloped in the story.
Yeah,
And it happens all the time. Like the whole like
yeah.
the Winthrop part where I was just like, I don't know why. I just didn't put together that this is She Who Remembers until it was revealed. I was like, why didn't I even
Yeah,
think that? Like I was so
yeah.
caught up in how Winthrop was digging these poles out
Yeah,
and
no, yeah.
ripping like
Didn't occur to me either. Yeah, totally. We're just along for the ride, especially on a first read. Yeah, it's great though to be so immersed like that. But also the audiobook, I think we both came around on the audio narration because I love doing books hybrid, just like picking up the book when I'm at home and have some spare time at home. But like when I'm going on walks or doing chores and or in the car, whatever, I really love to listen to the audio too. And so like I just don't want to notice the narration that's taking me out. Like, oh, like why is she saying that sentence that way, or why is she using that intonation? Like that happens so much in book one, but
yeah,
I just got so used to flossing, and I think she calmed down a bit. Like
she did.
she'll do and if you speed up a bit more than usual, I think it makes it like softens a lot of her intonation that she does at the end of sentences. But like
Yeah.
there were certain times where I'm like, oh, I'm still noticing her doing that thing where she drags it out at the end of it, like Malta, rain, her, like she didn't know what it was doing to her, but like sped up a little bit more than usual. Like there was less of that, and I think she was doing a lot less of that, where it's just more natural in this book. So
Yeah.
like I actually think she does a good job with the voices and like the emotional understanding of like the scenes and the characters. I think she's a pretty nuanced narrator, and so like I know a lot of people, rightly so, just like despise the audio from like the beginning of Ship of Magic, but like you could totally pick it up, I think, in book two, and it's kind of different. And if you get used to it, also that might be a big part of it. But like I think the audio narrator, there's some merit to the narration. It's not just terrible, and so you might just have to skip book one's audio or just speed it up a little bit more than usual or get used to it because
Yeah.
it is working for me now. Like I am enjoying the audio.
It is for me too. I think part of it was just getting to know the characters. Like once I knew the characters, I could kind of overlook a little bit of the part of the audiobook that was rubbing me the wrong way. But yeah, I mean, especially with these just chunky books, like it's so hard to get through them all on physical and still read other stuff that I want to read. So I'm glad it's working better for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're gonna probably wrap it up. Thank you guys in the
Mhm.
chat for again making this. It's just so much more fun when we have people, bringing stuff to our attention that we completely forgot to talk about. And Ben, thanks for being part of the first ever live discussion on Colin's Corner. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. It's great.
This has been a lot of fun, and we will be doing Ship of Destiny over the course of June, and we will figure out a time that works for both of us. This last discussion will be, I believe, on Ben's channel, so We'll keep you guys posted. Hopefully, you'll stop by and grace us with your presence again. But thanks again, Ben. I am going to go get ready for my daughter's ballet recital.
Nice. Have a great time.
Yeah, I definitely will. And have a good day, Ben, and have a good day, everybody that's still hanging out in the chat. Thank you guys so much for being here.